Jena tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Taravaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipayeno Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Taravo Vinidustam Sarvabhutam Hridimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Chittascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vajami Radam Aravinda Netram Smarami Radam Madhurashmikasyam Vadami Radam Karuna Bharatram Tato Mamanasti Katina Kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotar Sarashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotar Sarashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. And all our Rupanuga, Guru Varigya, today especially, my Dandavat pranams. So today is an exceptional day, probably one of the most exceptional days in the whole year, Guru Purnima. Here in India, every person has a guru, and all are out on the streets with their offerings and so on to come and visit Guru on this particular day. I was remembering this morning how my beloved Gurudev on this day in Mathura at Keshavji Gaudiya Math, all the roads would be blocked off and the crowds would be immense. And in our temple, we had created with bamboo sticks like aisles so that people could queue up, and my Gurudev would sit at the end of the temple and he would be barricaded off by a bamboo fence, and he'd be sitting on a bed and he'd have a huge bag of tulsi mala, tulsi neck beads to give to the various people that wanted initiation on that day. And actually, towards the end of his manifest pastimes, Gurudev would take 2 days to do this festival, because so many thousands and thousands of people came and were wanting Harinam on that day, not Diksha, but Harinam. And my Gurudev would start at 5 o'clock in the morning in his room, and he would have all the pictures of the Guru Parampara lined up, and he would start his puja to all his predecessor acharyas. So this is Vyasa Puja, this is Guru Puja, getting in touch with all our predecessor acharyas, going back to Vyasadeva and back, of course, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Gurudev would begin that puja himself in his room in Mathura, and then he would immediately, without taking any sort of refreshment, come downstairs, sit in the temple room at the end of the temple, where the pictures of Guru are hanging, and then all the people will begin filing in. And they would start this at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and they would continue through until about 12:30 in the afternoon. And Gurudev would just sit there for the whole time, putting neck beads on all these different people and wishing them well, etc. Families would come and they would bring offerings and so on like that. But it had to be arranged nicely, otherwise all the crowds wouldn't get their satisfaction of being with Gurudev. And Gurudev would just give that facility to all of those thousands and thousands of people. And then he would take his lunch, and then he would take a little rest, and then at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the whole thing would begin again and run through till about 8 or 9 in the evening. And he'd do that solidly for 2 days. And then all the people were fed prasadam as well. So it was a huge occasion, really making a very significant impression into all those sadhaks of the importance of this particular day of Guru Purnima, when Guru is to be honored and worshipped, and we're to understand the significance of Guru. Tadvidi pranipatena praniprashena sevaya upadekshayanti jnanam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. That one must submit submissively to Guru and inquire from him, pariprashnena, and then upadekshayanti. Then Guru can reveal that knowledge to you. So there's a process. And without coming into this process directly, this process, like we had a meeting we were saying earlier with the Ritviks, they have no personality to sit there. The person Guru has to be sitting there so that bhakti can be transmitted by Guru into the heart. If you imagine that you can take a Guru from a previous era, then this is just in your imagination. It's not a direct transmission of the seed of bhakti. So the seed of bhakti has to be transferred into the heart of the sadhak. And the seed of bhakti contains that Krishna Seva Vasana, the inspiration to serve Krishna. That comes from Guru. That's what the Bhakti Lata Bij is. And the Bhakti Lata Bij is a creeper. And a creeper has to grow on something. So that creeper grows on the quality of humility within the sadhak. If the sadhak is without this essential quality of humility, then nothing can transpire. We've said before how prem and humility are synonymous, whereas pride is synonymous with envy. So this mood of humility must be there in connection with Guru. And then the Bhakti Lata can grow right to the lotus feet of Sri Radhika ultimately, to come to our conclusion. But I was considering this Guru dynamic in relationship to these first 12 chapters we've been going through in Jaiva-Dharma. And every single chapter, there is the Guru-Shishya, or the Guru-disciple relationship related. It's not saying it directly, but it's indirectly there. Sannyasi Thakur comes right in the beginning in the first chapter, and he takes shelter of Prem Das Babaji as his guru. He's accepting him as his, and Prem Das Babaji is going to accept that role where he will instruct Prem Das Sannyasi Thakur. And then in the second chapter, this is also an instruction between guru and disciple. This is Prem Das Babaji again instructing Sannyasi Thakur. And in the third chapter, it's also the guru principle. It's now Vaishnava Das Babaji, who has come from being Sannyasi Thakur. Now he's Vaishnava Das Babaji. Now he's taking that role of guru. Mahaprabhu, he said very clearly in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Yare deke kore take Krishna upadesh, amare agyan guru hana tore edesh, that everyone should become guru. This very beautiful verse is, I'll just find it here. Mahaprabhu himself is instructing this. So important. Oh, I can't find it now. Yare deke kore, just a second, I'm just going to find it because I want to read it to you. Yare. But this Yare deke tore kahe Krishna upadesh, yes. And the translation is that instruct whomever you meet in devotional service to Sri Krishna. So whoever you meet, and like I was saying the other day, guru doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be an acharya. Guru, simply that guru dynamic means you are ready to take responsibility and to compassionately help the conditioned soul navigate out of the material mayic surroundings that they're in. That's the principle of guru. And that can only be done with the quality of love and affection. It can't be dictated to, because it's the heart itself that this transmission is going to take place. The heart itself is where the seed of devotion is going to take place within the heart. So that can't be coerced, that can't be berated, that can't be intimidated. That has to only be done with love. But the heart will only respond to love. Like if you're trying to break in a wild horse or something like that, if you just keep beating the horse, that's not really going to, you can beat the horse into submission, but if the horse loses its heart's inspiration, you're never going to get a very strong horse. But if you can appeal to that sense of inspiration within the animal, then that animal will want to please you. So our path is spontaneous devotion, rag marg, bhakti loke. This is what Mahaprabhu's come to give. So this raganuga has to be done with great sensitivity and great affection, because many times the sadhak coming is completely bewildered by the material energy. And sometimes he needs beating to some degree, but beating with affection. Everything has to be done with affection. So this has to be very clearly perceived that that guru is going to give you at heart. He has your best interest at heart. So this guru principle, so now we have in the 3rd chapter, we have Vaishnava Das Babaji, and he's instructing Lahari Mahashai, because Lahari Mahashai, in the end of the 3rd chapter, he submits fully to Vaishnava Das Babaji. He says, yes, I am your Shishya now, please instruct me. So that connection, that contract has to be made with the Guru. This is the Guru principle that we're celebrating today on Guru Purnima. Because without this principle, we cannot go forward in our bhakti. Simply impossible, not possible to go forward. And then in the 4th chapter, again, Vaishnava Das, he's instructing Lahari Mahashai in further precepts of activity in devotional service. So this is described in the 4th chapter. In the 5th chapter, Lahari Mahashai, now he's taking the role of guru in relationship to his son, Devi Das. Then he's instructing his son, introducing him to the Vaishnavas, etc. And then again in the 6th chapter, Lahari Mahashai is further instructing his son. So these first 6 chapters are directly guru-shishya relationship. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's bringing all this, because sometimes I've heard comments that, oh, Bhaktivinoda Thakur doesn't talk a lot about the guru relationship. He doesn't talk about it directly, but it's the platform and current of everything. My Gurudev used to talk about it directly all the time. He would say constantly, Guru Nishta is the backbone of devotion. Without this Guru Nishta flourishing, our devotion cannot go 1 degree forward. So then in the 7th chapter, Chandidas and his wife Damayanti, then they're going to meet Yadav Das. This is like their Vartma Pradaksha Guru. Actually, the Vaishnavi who accompanies Chandidas and Damayanti, she is their Vartma Pradash Guru, their first Guru. And then their Shiksha Guru is Yadava Das, and then he's taking them to meet Ananta Das Babaji. So this is all Guru-Shishya relationship that is manifesting in this Jaiva-Dharma. So just to appreciate this importance and thread, how it's continuous within the Jaiva-Dharma. And then in chapter 8, this is the discussion between Nityananda Das Babaji and the Vaishnavas. And this is all about Vaishnava etiquette. So again, this is the Guru-Shishya mood and relationship that Nityananda Das Babaji is instructing the Shishyas. And then in the 9th chapter, it's Lahari, and he's trying to instruct Digambar, who's a complete gross materialist, but he's taking the role of guru again. And then in the 10th chapter, the Muslims are approaching, the mullah, and they are approaching, and Gora Chand Das Babaji, he's instructing the mullah. So again, it's the guru principle. So all the way through, the whole of Jaiva-Dharma actually is going to be just the Guru Shishya principle. So today we're celebrating this Guru Purnima, where we accentuate and highlight the principle of Guru in our lives. My Gurudev made it very simple for us because he himself would talk about it all the time, because he knew the prominence and the importance of it, to become grave. Guru can give us gravity. This gravity is essential for our progress. Gravity means coming down from the intoxication of material, inspirational or sensual pleasures in the material world. That gravity. So Guru means like a weight, something heavy. So Guru will give us that weight of gravity. So then in the 12th chapter, now we're meeting the principal Shishya, who is Brajanath, and he's going to take direct relationship of Guru, disciple relationship with Raghunath Das, because ultimately, further on, I think it's in about the 20th chapter, then Rajanath and his uncle, they go and they're given their spiritual forms, or the identity of their spiritual natures is given to them by Raghunath Das. So Raghunath Das is instructing them all the way through the first 25 chapters, and then they're going to shift to Puri. And in Puri, another guru, Gopal Guru Goswami, he will take the role of the instructing guru. So all the way through, it must be master and teacher, master and teacher, master and teacher, all the way through. Without this dynamic, nothing can manifest. So we see this guru thread everywhere. And today, the Purnima, the full moon, it's the full moon of Guru manifesting in relationship to Vyasadeva. So there are many perspectives we can offer to glorify this particular day. But today I've chosen to glorify through the Jaiva-Dharma itself, because that's our study at the moment that we're doing regularly. And it's also Sanatana Goswami's Tirobhava, Sanatana Goswami's disappearance day. Sanatana Goswami was so beloved by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so exceptionally beloved. Mahaprabhu instructed him in Varanasi, in all the subject matters of tattva, from Sambandha, Abhideya, and Rasa tattva, the Prayojan tattva. Sanatana Goswami is the Sambandha Acharya, and the Thakurji of Sambandha is Madan Mohan. Those beautiful lotus feet of Madan Mohan are able to give shelter to the most fallen of the conditioned souls. So Sanatana Goswami, he could have been the Abhideya Acharya, he could have been the Prayojan Acharya, but Mahaprabhu delegated him as the Sambandha Acharya. And he's given us this beautiful Brihat Bhagavatamrita, which is like a journey through all the different planetary systems, eventually coming to Goloka Vrindavan and meeting Krishna. And he's a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, but he goes through all the different planetary systems and he meets all the different personalities along the way, Lord Brahma, Indra, Hanumanji, Prahlad, etc. He's meeting all these different personalities. It's a wonderful, wonderful treatise that he's given, this Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Not only has he given us the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, but he's given us a commentary. He writes his own commentary on what he has written previously. So that's a very large, beautiful, beautiful contribution that Sanatana Goswami has given us. So Sanatana Goswami has given us, he's given us his Toshan Tika on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also. And he uncovered so many of the holy places in Vrindavan. He was instructed after meeting Mahaprabhu in Varanasi to go to Vrindavan and rediscover the holy places. Brajanava had placed deities in many places in Vrindavan. Brajanava is the great-grandson of Krishna. So after Krishna left this world, Brajanava is the son of Aniruddha. And he was inspired to set deities all around Vrindavan in remembrance of Krishna's pastimes, Radha Govinda, Madan Mohan, and Gopinath, Radha Damodar. All these deities were there in Vrindavan, but had become covered over in the subsequent 5,000 years, 4,000 years since Krishna had left. So Sanatana Goswami went back to excavate and to search for all those places. All the Goswamis went back, Rupa Goswami also. And later on, Raghunath Das, he also goes back. But Sanatana Goswami is described, he got many ancient maps in Mathura, and he diligently was checking all the maps for all the holy places. A very copious amount of effort was taken to perform this service to Mahaprabhu diligently. This was their seva, to uncover Krishna's pastimes for us today, for the Gaudiyas today. This is what Sanatana Goswami's seva was, along with Rupa Goswami, along with Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, all the Goswamis. This is what they were renowned for giving us the Vrindavan that we have today. Unless the Goswamis performed that seva under the order of Mahaprabhu, we would not know Vrindavan today. We would not know Radhakund today without Raghunath Das's mercy. So Raghunath Das, he writes one very beautiful verse at the beginning of his Vilap Kusumanjali. Vairagya yug bhakti rasam prayatna apayan mam anapipsamandam kripam buddhadya paraduka duki sanatanam tvam prabhupam ashrayami. This is saying, I was unwilling to drink the nectar of bhakti ras, laced with renunciation. Bhakti ras is laced with renunciation of the material world. It's laced with attraction towards Krishna, which automatically means leaving the material world far behind. But Srila Sanatana Goswami, being an ocean of mercy, who cannot tolerate the sufferings of others, induced me to drink it. Therefore, I take shelter of Sanatana Goswami. This is Sanatana Goswami's pranam mantra, Vairagya Yug Bhakti Rasamra Priyatna. This is the mantra we chant. And his samadhi is just behind the Madan Mohan temple in Vrindavan, just down a little bit from the Madan Mohan temple. So there are so many pastimes about Sanatana Goswami in Vrindavan, his discovery of Madan Mohan, etc. Madan Mohan coming with him from Mathura to Vrindavan, and Sanatana Goswami worshipping him, etc. So many pastimes, but I'm sure we will have all heard many of those pastimes today in different glorifications. So I'm going to stop my glorification of Sanatana Goswami there and just appreciate very much that today in particular, if we remember Sanatana Goswami, there's no question that so much kripa can descend directly from Sanatana Goswami himself. He will send us this special mercy today if we glorify him. So there are endless topics about him, but I want to stay with our Jaiva-Dharma study today also, even though it's such an important day. But at the same time, I think to keep consistency with our Jaiva-Dharma is also important, and I think that would please Sanatana Goswami. Also, Chatumasya begins today. So Chatumasya is very important. Mahaprabhu would follow Chatumasya himself. Mahaprabhu is our bhajan shiksha guru. So without following the precepts of Mahaprabhu, how can we expect to get the gifts of Mahaprabhu, which are ultimately Rata Dasya? So this is our desire to please Mahaprabhu. So we should follow this Chatumasya to the best of our ability in whichever circumstances we're in, and follow the various food prohibitions. Actually, the food prohibitions are the easy part of it. It's the deepening of our meditation. By following the food restrictions, no tomatoes, honey, eggplant, what else? Uridal. Yes, and this month, no spinach. And they all have beautiful reasons for it. For example, the spinach that comes up in this month because the rains have already begun. And it's described that the jivas, they fall with the rains. So the rains are falling into the first leaf plants that actually manifest. So when the spinach is growing and you take the spinach at this particular time, you're most likely to be consuming jivas who have actually fallen with the rain at this time. So it has purpose to it. It's not without clear thought on why to embrace these various restrictions. But each time we follow the restriction, we should be conscious of why we're following it, to please Mahaprabhu, to please Guru, to please our Guru Varga. And when we think of like this, then we can make progress, we can make advancement by remembering those personalities. So taking more care with our daily lives, basically, is what this Chaturmasya will inspire into us every living minute for the next, actually it's 5 months, because Purushottam month falls in the middle. So it gets extended. So it's practically 5 months we have these restrictions on, which are there to support our devotion, to support our bhakti. Because when we're considering these restrictions, then we're thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to indulge in that because this will please Mahaprabhu, this will please Guru, and then I will incur the mercy of those divine personalities, because it's only by mercy. There is no other hope for the jiva to come out of this material illusion except by the, exactly as a man in a deep, dry well, or a well full of water, makes no difference. How can he get out? He cannot possibly get out alone. He has to be thrown a rope. And the man's responsibility is to take hold of the rope. So we have that, getting hold of the rope is our relationship with Guru. Guru will extend his help, and he can't pull us out alone. Just like a child learning to walk, we can make all the arrangements, put the cushions there, everyone, but the child has to walk by himself. So the sadhak in the bottom of the dry well, he also by himself has to grab the rope and pull up, climb up the rope to get out. Guru will make the initiating help, but he can't do it for us. We have to do that ourselves. We have that independence is there. And without independently coming to Krishna, in full affection to Krishna, then it's not a real engagement with Krishna. So it has to be individually accomplished, independently accomplished by the individual. So this is Guru. So this is Chaturmasya in connection with our celebration of Guru Purnima. So this is, and in connection with Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami is such an inspiration. So these three forms, we can say, are manifesting today. Guru principles, Sanatana Goswami, and Chaturmasya. It's a day of great auspicious celebration. And the whole of this land, in India especially, is really celebrating. So Guru Purnima ki jai, Sanatana Goswami Pad ki jai, Chaturmasya ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So now we'll come to our, we still have 30 minutes left for our Jaiva-Dharma. And today I'll chant the shlokas. We'll start from the 11th shloka. I think we completed yesterday the first 10. So there's 14 verses in this Falshruti. Just turn this off. Jaiva-Dharma Pateshe Shura Bhakti Hoy, Jaiva-Dharma Napadile Kabe Bhakti Noy. One who reads Jaiva-Dharma with faithful deliberation will surely attain Shuddha Bhakti, but one who does not read Jaiva-Dharma can never attain Bhakti. So we've discussed before this particular word of faithful, Shraddha. If we're reading this treatise, this Jaiva-Dharma, with great Shraddha, that means it's very easy to have faith, I think, in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was such a monumental personality, a deputy magistrate, so many children in his family life, such an erudite scholar, exuded humility and greatness at the same time. His contribution to the world is phenomenal. He had to combat the British Raj on one side and all the Apasiddhantas that had grown up and sprung up amongst the Vaishnava communities on the other side. So Vaishnavism had suffered a blow for the last 100 years. There had been like a cloud. And Srimati Radhika, from her desire for this Rupanuga Guru Vargya to continue in service to her beloved Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she throws her lotus flower into this world. She carries a play lotus. So she throws that lotus. What is a lotus in Sanskrit? It's Kamal, Kamala Manjari. This Kamala Manjari is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So it's very simple for us to have great respect and honor for this personality. He's written volumes of books, songs, documents, translations. He's uncovered all the holy places of Goradhan. Without manifesting that yog pit, then we wouldn't have a central point for our devotion in Navadvip, in Goradhan. So he went to great efforts to do all of this. So such a monumental personality, how can we not have great respect and affection for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Personally, I can remember many years ago when I very first came to devotional service, as soon as I saw a photograph of Bhaktivinoda Thakur with his somewhat protruding belly and it just simplicity of his demeanor, I was very attracted to his form. It wasn't like he was rigid or stiff. He seemed like a man for the people. So I felt an affinity with him directly. He took the Sanskrit granthas and he translated them into the Bengali vernacular so that all Bengalis could have access to the truths of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Previously, it was locked in the Sanskrit language. Sanatana Goswami, the six Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, they would write in beautiful Sanskrit language, but it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur who unlocked this and began writing it in Bengali. And then subsequently, my Gurudev, he translated, or his Gurudev also translated so many of those Bengali texts into Hindi, so then they could become more prominent in the world. So this is the contribution of Bhaktivinoda. How can we not have faith in his amazing scripture of Jaiva-Dharma? Rupanuga abhiman pate trita hoy, Jaiva-Dharma vimukake dharma hine koi. Faithfully, reading Jaiva-Dharma will surely strengthen one's abhiman as a Rupanuga, follower of Rupa Goswami. One who is averse to reading Jaiva-Dharma is certainly devoid of religious principles. Jaiva-Dharma is the complete ocean in a single jar, as we said before. The whole ocean is contained within a jar. All Siddhanta, all truths, from Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan Tattva, are all delineated. There's not a drop that is missed out here. If we just take this singular book as our heart and soul, all success will come, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is within this book. Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes copiously from the Srimad Bhagavatam, also from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, also from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the Bindu. So many granthas are actually quoted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So all philosophy on earth is contained within this scripture. So if someone is averse to reading this, what does that say for their enthusiasm for devotion? How can they be thought of as someone who is enthusiastic to be a devotee if they reject this book? Java Jivare Je Pade Jaiva Dharma Bhaktiman Se Janavrita Jnana Karma. One who faithfully reads Jaiva-Dharma throughout his entire life, that's the key, faith, entire life, will be endowed with bhakti and will surely realize the futility of jnana and karma. Yes, when Vedavyas was writing his Srimad Bhagavatam, because he basically wrote the first 9 cantos before he had the vision that was granted by Narad's Kripa. He had written Gyan Kand and Karma Kand presentations in so many of his writings. They had all been to benefit the fruitive worker as well as the person who wanted moksha. These were which means the path of Gyan Kand. So these 2 paths were prominently there. But it's only with the mercy of Narad, again, the guru principle. By the mercy of Narad, Vyasadeva had darshan of Vrindavan and saw Brajendranandan being bound to the grinding mortar by Mother Yashoda, and understanding that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in his full Madhurya Dham, his full Madhurya opulence, we can say. There's such an opulence in Madhurya. So this sweetness, this opulence of sweetness and beauty is so extraordinarily different from the opulence of Dwarka or Mathura, which was principally prominent prior to Mahaprabhu. It was Mahaprabhu who took the Vrindavan pastimes and opened them up for the world to see. Prior to Mahaprabhu, people were performing Vaidhi Bhakti in principle. There was very little current of Rag Marg present. It was there to some degree, but very minimal. It was only with Mahaprabhu and especially Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami that this Rag Marg was really fully opened. And today, 2023, it's even more open than it's ever been before. There are more translations. These books are prolific all over the planet. So even more mercy is coming from Mahaprabhu today. When Mahaprabhu was on the planet, some understood these topics. Not all of his associates understood these topics. Rupa Goswami understood these topics and amazed all the other devotees when he presented his Vidagdha Madhav and Lalit Madhav in Puri. When Rupa Goswami came here for 10 months and stayed with Mahaprabhu in the Siddha Bakul place with Haridas Thakur, then he read his beautiful Vidagdha Madhav and the devotees were astonished. Yes, this is the current that Mahaprabhu has come to give, to describe Parakiya Ras. So this could not be understood prior to Mahaprabhu. So today, the teachings of Mahaprabhu are more developed, they're more open, they're more accessible. We have these mobile phones, we can just tap on a icon and straight away we can enter into Chaitanya Charitamrita. All over the world it's there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, at the age of about 25, 26, couldn't find a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But we have it today at our fingertips, so it's readily available now. And this Rag Marg is pushing the paths of Gyan Kand and Karma Kand further away, unless we resolutely want still to maintain or acquire some material acquisition through the path of Karma Kand, or we want to go to the heavenly planets, something like that. And the Srimad Bhagavatam really dispels that desire by so many pastimes about Lord Indra, for example, and the difficulties that he has to go through. Because within Swagaloka, they have that commodity or that jewel of Krishna Prem is not readily available. The demigods are queuing up, literally it's described, to come at this time in the world so that they can take the jewels of Mahaprabhu's teachings. They even come for the Rath Yatra. The Devas are coming to see Lord Jagannath. So all of these truths are there for us to appreciate. Krishnera Ramala Seva Labhi Senara Seva Sukhe Magnaraha Sada Krishna Para. Such a man, being fully devoted to Sri Sri Radha Krishna Yugal Kishore, and having attained their Amal Prem Seva, remains forever merged in the bliss of such immaculate, loving service. This is the prayojan. This is the final conclusion, that the aspiring sadhak wishes to remain immersed eternally in the Amal Prem Seva of Radha and Krishna conjugal. That means as the servant, the maidservant of Sri Radhika. We don't have the adhikar to be a Saki, because there's no Saki line. The Sakis were Rai Ramananda and Swarup Damodar, Lalita and Vishaka. They didn't create a line deliberately, because Mahaprabhu was not giving Saki Bhav. Mahaprabhu is giving Manjari Bhav. All of our Rupanuga Guru Varga, they are all Manjaris. We are in the line of the Manjaris, the maidservants of Sri Radhika. This is why my Gurudev accentuated worship and devotion directly to Sri Radhika. He gave his life and soul simply to glorify Sri Radhika. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has done exactly the same as Kamala Manjari. He's given his identity. He's walking with his Saki. He's walking with Ananga Manjari, with Lalita Saki on the banks of the Jamuna, Dekite Dekite, carrying a water pot on his head. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is describing this very clearly. This is our path. This is the path of Rag Marg that Mahaprabhu wants us to follow. This is the path that Srimati Radhika is prepared to give her mercy to. So the aspiring sadhak should be very enthusiastic to take up this unique jewel that is only available now. It hasn't been available previous to the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as simply as it is now. So now we're coming back to our study of chapter 12. So we still have 15-20 minutes left. I'm just hoping that the recording is going on okay, that I'm expending my energy for the recording, but we're not very tech savvy here. Anyway, so yes, we've reached the chapter 12, and I was explaining previously how here Brajanath, who is the main character, is now going to be becoming submissive to Raghunath Das Babaji, who is a disciple of Raghunath Das Goswami. So don't get confused here. There's Raghunath Das Goswami, who has given his mercy to Raghunath Das Babaji, who we are getting the mercy from today. So it's as if we're in this setting and we're getting directly the mercy of Raghunath Das Babaji. So now yesterday we began to describe these three paths of bhukti, mukti, and bhakti. We described the path of bhukti, the path of material, sensual engagement, even in the region of Swagaloka. This is all in the region of bhukti. Swagaloka, they are described as bhoga yoni. Yoni means species. Bhoga means pleasure. They are the pleasure species, seeking pleasure, materially. We are karma yoni here in this material world, incurring karma. And those below are papa yoni. They are incurring sin. They are sinful personalities, the species of sin in the lower regions. So all of this is in the bag of sensual enjoyment, of bhukti. And then we discussed mukti, and how mukti will just take us to the Brahman, basically. It's an impersonal conclusion, mukti, without the form of the Lord. This is mukti, dharma, artha, karma, moksha. These were the four purusarthas. These are the four principal paths that even Vedavyas was discussing. But prem purusartha, this fifth goal, was not discussed prior. So now this is all being revealed by Raghunath Das Babaji. So we came to this part of I'll just start from page 270 in my book, from the first paragraph down. This is the viewpoint who regard mukti as the object of attainment, and the Shastras propounding Gyan Kand present this analysis of sadhya and sadhan. So that's the conclusion of the mukti section. So now we're going to come to the bhakti section. The Shastras are Kamadhenu, and they arrange different situations for the jivas according to their adhikar, level of qualification. Mukti is generally understood to be the cessation of the individual ego. However, if the jivas retain their individual existence and identities when they attain, however, if the jivas retain their individual existence and identities when they attain it, mukti cannot be the final attainment. I'll read that again. It's a very powerful sentence. However, if the jivas retain their individual existence and identities, that's material identities, when they attain it, mukti cannot be the final attainment. The final attainment is not pertaining to this material body. This material body we know is temporary, it's not eternal. Our goal is to connect with the eternal aspect or the eternal particle within this material body. This is our objective. It has nothing to do with the external world or the material body at all. But mukti is the subtle desire. So we've gone from the gross desire of sensuality, desires, and now the subtle desire of mukti. That is also not complete, because there's still this material identity. This is what he just said. This means that the jivas can only take mukti up to the limit of annihilation of the individual self, nirvana. But the jivas are eternal, so they cannot really be annihilated. So the Muktivads are trying to annihilate their material false ego. And consequently, their individual egos get completely covered over, their pure ego. It's almost like a simple example of chemotherapy today. It's a cure for cancer, very violent cure, because cancer is a very powerful disease that can take over the body. So chemotherapy, it can kill everything else along the way, and it kills the disease ultimately. And ultimately, there's practically not much success ultimately for the patient who's undergoing heavy chemotherapy. There are cases, of course, where they have been successful, but 90% of those going into that. So similarly, going to the path of mukti, it kills everything else. It creates an impersonal state of consciousness within the jiva. It's not cultivating the service to Brajendrananda and Shyam Sundar. That's not the focus. The focus isn't love between the subject and object. The focus is on just the individual self-realized soul, just him being self-realized. It ends up like a void, like in the Brahman, in Shantaras or neutrality. This is confirmed in the Shvetashvarta Upanishad. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. He is the supreme eternal being amongst all the living beings, and he is the supreme conscious entity amongst all conscious entities. Yes, there is a spirit beyond us. This and other Vedic mantras establish that the jiva is eternal, and that annihilation of his individual existence, nirvana, is therefore impossible. I described previously how if you merge into the Brahman, Rupa Goswami is described in his Lalit Madhav, how that, not in his Lalit Madhav, in his Lagu Bhavanamrita, he's described how the particle of light coming from the spirit soul is still serving the Lord with the rays of his light, enhancing Krishna's Brahmajyoti. So that service can't even be annihilated in that condition, but the jiva itself remains contained within the Brahmajyoti and can't go beyond there, and remains in a state of Shantaras forever, eternally, because the jiva is eternal and the Brahmajyoti is an eternal place. So he stays eternally within that place. And I described yesterday, unless a great saintly person comes through with their mercy, they remain there eternally. Those who accept this conclusion understand that the jiva continues to exist as an individual after he attains mukti. Consequently, they do not accept bhukti or mukti as the ultimate goal. Yes, now we've come to the path of bhakti. Rather, they consider that bhukti and mukti are actually extraneous goals, which are foreign to the nature of the jiva. That's very interesting. Bhukti and mukti are foreign, extraneous goals. They're not natural to the jiva. It's something unnatural. If you're on a path and you're trying to go on an unnatural path, then how can that be satisfying for the soul? It won't be. Our path is the complete holistic aspect of the soul in its most complete state of consciousness. Rather, they consider that bhukti and mukti are actually extraneous goals which are foreign to the nature of the jiva. You see, every single sentence of this Jaiva-Dharma is powerful. I'm reading actually quite quickly through it, but I'm feeling that we have to do a retake of the whole thing again. We can read it constantly for our whole lives, again and again and again, like any scripture. And new revelations, because of its purity, will be inspired within us. Every endeavor has a goal and some means to attain it. Every endeavor. Whatever you want to do, there has to be a conclusion that you're trying to acquire. If you're hungry and you go into the kitchen, you have to start cooking. That's the endeavor. And the goal is going to be eating. So it's the sadhana and the sadhya. So in every endeavor, there's a goal. Every endeavor has a goal and some means to attain it. The result that one strives to attain is known as sadhya. Sadhya is the goal. And the practice that one adopts to bring about that result is known as sadhan. Very explicitly revealed here. If you reflect deeply, you will see that the goals of the living entities and the means that they adopt to attain them are like successive links in a chain. That's very graphic. Links in a chain. What is a sadhya goal now becomes the sadhan, the means to obtain the next sadhya later on. So they're all like links in a chain. If one adopts this chain of cause and effect, one eventually comes to the final link in the chain. The effect or sadhya that is attained in that final stage is the highest and ultimate sadhya, which does not become a sadhan, means for anything else, because there is no other sadhya beyond it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is taking us to the limit of opportunity. When one crosses all the links in this chain of sadhya and sadhan, one eventually reaches the final link, which is known as bhakti. Bhakti is therefore the highest sadhya because it is the jiva's eternal state of perfection, nitya siddha bhav. Nitya siddha bhav, eternally perfect spiritual emotion. That's the final effect. Every action in human life is a link in the chain of sadhan and sadhya, or cause and effect. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is repeating himself because it's such a powerful statement. The karma section of this chain of cause and effect consists of many links joined together. When one progresses beyond this, a further series of links form another section known as Gyan. So karma is connected to Gyan in this sense. It's linked together. It's like it's described as the yoga ladder in the Bhagavad Gita. This is also karma, Gyan, and bhakti. It's the same yoga ladder being described here. The final sadhya in the chain of karma is bhukti, and the final sadhya in the chain of Gyan is mukti, and the final sadhya in the chain of bhakti is prema bhakti. If one reflects upon the nature of the jiva's perfected state, one must conclude that bhakti is both sadhan and sadhya. Very important. There's the process and there's the goal. And then this is chalked out by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the beautiful verse, Kleshagni Shubhada. We've said many times there's sadhan bhakti, bhav bhakti, and prema bhakti. If your sadhan bhakti is not focused on the bhav bhakti, then what success can your sadhan be? If the goal is not clear, what is bhav bhakti? Moksha lukhatakrit sadulabha. Moksha lukhatakrit means I look on mukti with disdain. Moksha lukhatakrit. It's useless to me. And this path, sadulabha, is very rare. So in each of these two words in this verse, klesh agni, klesh means suffering, agni means fire. The club sufferings are incinerated in sadhan bhakti. Klesh agni shubhada means very auspicious. And then the next stage, moksha lukhatakrit sudulabha. Moksha lukhatakrit means looking down on moksha, and sudulabha means very rare. And then there is prem, sandra ananda. This word sandra ananda is a beautiful word to contemplate. Sandra ananda means that nothing else can enter except prem. Nothing else. There's nothing else in the consciousness except for prem. Nothing else is there. Sandra ananda. Nothing else is there. Sri Krishna akashani chasa. That will even attract Krishna. So there's nothing else in the consciousness. Prema bhakti. If one reflects upon the nature of the jiva's perfected state, one must conclude that bhakti is both sadhan and sadhya. Karma and gyan are not the final sadhya and sadhan, for they are only intermediate stages. So this has been a very clear delineation of the three types of sadhan and sadhya. That of karma or bhukti, and gyan or mukti, and bhakti, devotion. So these three paths very clearly. So now Brajanath is going to ask a very beautiful question. We'll continue that tomorrow so we can just digest. You have a question? Oh, you have to stop it. Yeah. Come. In a minute. So thank you all very much. And now we're just figuring out how to stop it. So Jaiva-Dharma ki jai, Guru Purnima ki jai, Sri Sanatana Goswami Pad ki jai, Chatumasya ki jai, Jaiva-Dharma ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvaevacha, Patitanam Papnibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namaha, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.